Hey everybody, Rob Childs here, Rapier swordsman out of the United States, coming to you live and direct with another video on rapier combat. And this time I'm going to be answering some of the questions that have been posed through the website and also to me directly. But before that, just wanted to apologize for the length of time that has occurred since the last video. I know it's been a few weeks, but it's been a very busy few weeks over on this end. I taught a seminar on rapier up in Pennsylvania, and then immediately from there, flew out to Los Angeles in order to do the photo shoot for my upcoming book, Revelations of Rapier, which is due out at the beginning of the new year in 2022. Very long day of photo shoot, and I very much put out my appreciation to everybody who was a part of that. But now that that is finished, and the photos that have been chosen, and the photographers doing the retouches on those, and the details have been hammered out, I think pretty much with the publisher, we are on course for a release date in the first quarter of 2022. So the question was asked, is there a frame of mind or attitude that is more receptive in learning about your opponent before and during the bout? Very good question. So when a student first starts learning, there is a lot of conscious thought that's happening. They are looking at their opponent and they are trying to consciously think their way through the bout. Now, in the beginning, you have no choice but to do that because you don't have any of the instinctive reflexes that you will eventually gain over time and through training. But in the beginning, that student is trying to think their way through it. They're trying to see that attack coming in and make their decision as to which parry they're going to use, and then do they do a riposte high or do they do it low? All of that is very, very slow because conscious thought is itself, in comparison to the time of fencing, a very slow process. Now for me, 33 years later, I'm not exactly sure when I came to realize this, but regardless, I have come to understand that there are basically two sides to every fencer, like two sides of the same coin, and that is that human conscious self and that animal reflexive self. That human conscious self is the part of you that is capable of conscious thought. It is the part of you that notices tells and patterns in your opponent and then strategizes and hopefully comes up with something that is going to defeat your opponent. That animal reflexive self, however, is what comes to the fore when you are in the midst of the blur itself, that action phase, right? When you're exchanging blows and parries and defenses and offense with your opponent, but you don't have time to think about what it is you're doing, you're immediately translating a stimulus that you pick up from your opponent, whether it be a certain attack that you've seen thousands and thousands of times before, which immediately triggers a certain type of parry for you, or whatever the case may be. It is the part of you that is action without thought. Now, I say it's two halves of the same coin because each one of those halves has a very specific role throughout the entire bout. It's just a matter of which one is in control at which particular time. I suppose the best way to explain that metaphorically is if you imagine a car and you've got the driver's seat and the back seat. Now, before the blur, the action sequence begins, that conscious self is in the front seat. It is driving. It is noticing things before the bout even begins. How long is your opponent's arm? Are they right or left-handed? Do they have any particular tells? How long is the sword? How do they stand? Things of that nature. But then the bout begins, and once the blur actually starts, that is the point at which the animal self takes over. It is now in the driver's seat, and it is the part that is taking all of the input and immediately translating that into an action without having to think about it. But that's not to say the conscious part of yourself does not have a role during that time. It is sitting in the back seat while the animal self is driving. That conscious self is watching everything. It is taking note of everything that's happening in the bout, your opponent's tells and patterns and things that are going to present weaknesses and holes in their defense. And once that blur sequence ends, then that conscious self feeds all of that information into that animal self. So that way the next time that sequence appears, and trust me, more than likely it's going to, because people are, generally speaking, pattern driven. Once that pattern presents again, the animal self will immediately flow into that new information and operate off of that information, again, without thought, just because that's what's necessary at the time. So I hope that explains things. If not, by all means, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm more than willing to engage any questions as necessary. You can reach out to me on YouTube. You can reach out to me on Facebook. You can find me under Robert Childs there. I'm more than happy to help where I can. So in the meantime, I'm hoping that you guys are continuing to train hard and keeping safe, and look forward to meeting with you at a competition sometime soon.